Winter clung to the Montana frontier like a stubborn ghost. And the lonely rancher, Samuel Carter, stood on the icy platform as the steam engine hissed into the station, his heart heavy with the weight of an uncertain future because his land was failing, his cattle were starving, and his brother had passed without warning, leaving him the hero and the villain of a story he never asked to carry. So he had done the one thing a proud man usually wouldn't. He paid for a Christmas mail-order bride, not out of love or loneliness, but out of raw desperation, hoping a woman could help him salvage the last pieces of his dying world. And when the train door opened, he expected some timid girl or hardened woman, but instead a soft-featured, determined young lady stepped out with a single bag in hand, wearing clothing too thin for the winter, her hair braided and tied neatly, her posture straight like a soldier, and when she met his eyes he felt a stumble in his soul, as if fate had struck a surprise blow, and she said in a calm, steady voice, "You must be Mr. Carter," to which he nodded, tipping his hat, not yet knowing her name would matter more than any word he ever spoke. And she said, "I am Eliza Grace," which sounded less like a bride for hire and more like the heroine of a tale. But Samuel wasn't a man who let emotions guide his thoughts anymore. So he loaded her luggage onto the wagon and they rode back to the ranch in silence, broken only by the wind, until she said, "Your letter said you needed help." And he answered bluntly, "I need someone who can work," because tenderness had no space on a dying ranch, and she nodded as if she had already accepted the harshness, though her eyes reflected something fierce and hidden, something that did not match her plain dress or gentle voice. And when they arrived, she was introduced to the worn-down barn. Thin cattle and cold broken fences, as if Samuel was showing her war scars, not property. And he informed her that his hired hands had quit, his savings were nearly gone, and that if winter lasted long, the ranch would die. Then they entered the cabin, where the fireplace lit the room with flickering flame and the stockings hung on the mantel, hinted at a Christmas that would come whether they wanted it or not. And that night she asked for needle, thread and paper, yet he had none, so she tore small scraps from an old feed sack, writing numbers with charcoal, sketching shapes that looked like strange mechanical patterns. And Samuel wondered if she was more than just determined, maybe odd, maybe troubled, until early morning, when he found her outside in the freezing air studying fence posts, wind direction and cattle movement like a scientist solving a riddle. And that's when she revealed her hidden talent, not dramatically but in a quiet confession, saying that she had grown up with an inventor father, working on machinery designed to operate without steam, harnessing wind and weight, and she believed she could build a wind-powered feeding system that would conserve hay, reduce waste, and keep cattle strong through winter. And Samuel laughed because it sounded too foolish and too miraculous. But she didn't argue. She simply asked for tools, wood, and rope, and over the following days she worked with the ferocity of a blacksmith, sawing, shaping, hammering, creating strange wooden arms that caught wind and rotated, stirring feed into troughs automatically. And Samuel watched not with romance but with awe and fear, wondering how a mail-order bride who looked like a schoolteacher could build something that might save his ranch. And at night they ate simple meals by the fire, speaking little, but sharing a quiet companionship built not on attraction but on necessity, until one night he caught her shivering too badly and gave her his coat, and she looked up at him with eyes that thanked him louder than words, creating a moment that burned warm as the fire, though neither acknowledged its meaning. And when her invention was finished, they tested it in the bitter wind. And to Samuel's disbelief, it worked. The wind turned the arms released measured hay, and the cattle fed without waste. And Samuel fell to his knees laughing, crying, swearing, thanking the heavens, because for the first time in a year, the ranch had hope and Eliza didn't celebrate. She simply exhaled and said, "We still have much work to do," as if saving a ranch was merely her duty, not her dream. And Samuel began to feel something unfamiliar, a respect deeper than admiration, a gratitude so intense it frightened him. And as Christmas drew near, and the ranch slowly strengthened, he found himself watching her by the fire in the evenings, her face lit in gold, her hands stained with labor, her talent transforming his land, her presence transforming his heart. And though neither spoke of affection, their silence was filled with it. And every night Samuel prayed for one more miracle, not for wealth, not for cattle, but for a reason to believe that this strange, brilliant woman had been sent not just to save his ranch, but to save him too. And he whispered into the darkness, "Lord, please don't let her leave after winter. not knowing that Eliza prayed for the exact same thing, but feared he would never want someone like her forever, and so Christmas approached with wind-whipped nights, long days of labor and the unspoken, rising warmth of two broken souls slowly learning that sometimes salvation arrives in the most unexpected form, wrapped not in ribbons, but in resilience, intelligence, and a heart waiting silently to be chosen. And if you're still with this story and enjoying it, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more epic Wild West tales, because your support helps keep stories like this alive and growing. The snow thickened in late December as winter became an unforgiving beast. But Eliza's invention kept the cattle fed, turning wind into life. And Samuel found himself thriving again, not rich, but surviving, yet rumors spread quickly across the frontier. Whispers of a ranch suddenly recovering, and soon greedy investors, rival ranchers, and opportunists began to circle, claiming rights over land, water, and inheritance, threatening to undo everything Samuel and Eliza had built. And one day, a wealthy rancher named Crowley arrived with lawyers, offering to buy the entire ranch for pennies, insisting Samuel would lose it anyway. And Samuel nearly agreed out of exhaustion, but Eliza stepped forward, speaking with such confidence that the men laughed until she dismantled their legal argument piece by piece, proving she was more than a craftsman. She was educated, strategic, and dangerous when cornered, and Crowley stormed off with a promise to return, leaving Samuel stunned not only by her intelligence but by the realization that he had nearly surrendered the ranch she saved. So he confessed to her that he didn't believe he deserved success anymore because too much had been taken from him. And Eliza responded that broken people often think survival is enough, but they forget they're allowed to want happiness too. And when he asked her how she became so strong, she told him the painful truth that she wasn't chosen by a man to become a mail-order bride. She volunteered because her inventions had always been dismissed as tricks, her mind called unfitting for a woman, and she believed that somewhere, someone might value her not just for her body, but for her brilliance. And Samuel realized that he wasn't the only wounded soul on the ranch, and he promised quietly that no one would silence her here. No one would mock what she had built. And Christmas Eve arrived with a storm so fierce that roofs rattled and windows groaned like ghosts. And as they secured the barn, Eliza slipped and fell, twisting her ankle badly. And Samuel carried her back to the cabin, tending to her injury with a tenderness that surprised them both. And when she apologized for slowing the work, he told her that her value wasn't measured by productivity. And she looked at him with tears she had never allowed herself to shed, asking why he wanted her there. Was she just labor? A purchase, a temporary crutch? And Samuel, terrified of his own feelings, confessed that at first she was survival, but now she was the reason he woke with hope. And she whispered that she feared giving her heart to a man who might give up on himself. And silence followed until Samuel leaned forward, not to force a kiss but to press his forehead gently to hers, a gesture of two broken humans finding strength in each other. And the storm raged outside, testing fences and walls. But her invention held strong, feeding cattle even through the violent winds, proving that what she built was not fragile, it was meant for the harsh world, much like her. And Christmas morning came with calm, sun reflecting off the snow, cattle healthy and restless, the ranch standing strong. And Samuel walked Eliza to the hill overlooking the valley, telling her that he wanted her not as a worker but as a partner, not as a purchased bride but as a chosen love. And Eliza, trembling with disbelief, asked if he could truly love a woman who thought, created, invented, challenged, and Samuel replied that he could love nothing less. And they held each other in the cold morning light, not with passion but with peace, because love on the frontier was not fireworks. It was survival, trust, and the courage to build together. And months later, Eliza's design would spread across the territory, transforming ranching forever. But neither she nor Samuel cared about fame, wealth, or recognition. They cared only that every night they could sit by the fire, side by side, hands touching, hearts steady, knowing that a Christmas mail-order bride with a mind like a storm saved a dying ranch and a dying man, not with beauty or obedience, but with talent, intelligence, and the kind of strength that rewrites destinies. And if you reached the end of this story, make sure you subscribe to the channel because more incredible frontier romances are coming, and your subscription keeps this storytelling journey alive.